Chronological Bible in a Year, day 226. We are continuing the story of Jeremiah, and in today's reading, there was a lot I wanted to cover. But then we got to 29, and I couldn't ignore another of the most misused verses in Scripture. Jeremiah 29:11 says, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans for prosperity and not for disaster, to give you a future and a hope." How often do we hear this brought up as people are discussing, like, hey, I've got a really hard test ahead of me, but you know what? I know God has plans. Or, man, I didn't get the job I was hoping for, but God says, I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. And often the reason we're in the dumps at that point isn't because we're like facing some cultural punishment like the Israelites are here. That doesn't mean we can't use this verse well. My mom died of cancer the year I finished seminary to become a pastor. A lot of people kind of paused and they're like, is this going to be the end of his career? Is he going to be one of those guys who turns on God facing hardship? But my mom read this verse and she used it during that last year or so fighting cancer, saying, I am suffering. This isn't great. This is hard, but I know God's plans. And that prosperity might be on the other side of this fight. She didn't believe that life was going to be perfect just because she prayed and read her Bible. She knew that God's plans sometimes end in pain and sorrow. But even knowing that that could be the end, she had a joy that I can't explain. A joy that only comes from understanding God's plans are greater than ours, even if they completely upend ours, or in her case, end their story entirely. Someone in the comments is going to be like, her story's not over, it lives through you, or whatever your catchy, comforting thing may be, but you know what I mean in that. God's promise to the Israelites here isn't that you're all going to be home soon. It's marry, have kids, let your kids marry. Remember God. God has amazing plans, and not everyone in exile got to see the people return, but they all got to play a role in carrying on this legacy. I would argue the you here should be for the church, not for me. So how can we be a part of that plan even if we don't get to be part of the generation that brings it to fruition? How can we let that future and hope drive us even if we might not see it on this side of eternity? That's not the most popular interpretation of this passage, but it's the one most relevant to those who heard this in the first place. I'm looking forward to being attacked greatly in the comments today and seeing what comes next. But until then, God bless.